Yo, what's up everybody? It's Drewberry and today we're talking about some data mined cards. That's right, some cards that have yet to be released but might be coming soon. I specifically picked 5 that have a lot of variants data mined, and I find typically when cards tend to have variants in the data mines, they get released fairly soon. So maybe we'll see these in a few months, but they might not be in their current forms, right? We've seen cards change like as a data mine card and then be completely different when it's released. Zabu comes to mind, right? That was a completely different card when it was data mined, and now it is as we know it today, even after the nerfs. Another one is Kitty Pryde. She used to have 2 power in the data mines. Now she's got 0. So there's changes, so don't take it too much to heart, but we're going to give them some star ratings, just based on the current meta and how I feel if this card dropped today, how it'd perform, some combinations that would work with it. And also these 5 I have talked about before, but not at length. I've talked about datamine cards quite a bit. I talked about these like 5-6 months ago when the meta was completely different. There was different cards added to the game, so I felt like this could be a fresh opportunity to talk about these cards. If you like this kind of content, definitely smash that like button. I super appreciate it. Lets me know if I should keep doing this. And also, if you don't want to be spoiled, then just turn away now. No hard feelings. All right, and kicking it off with Nebula. So Nebula is a 1-cost, 1-power card. On reveal, if your opponent played a card here this turn, Guardians of the Galaxy, right? Same general theme. Double the power of this card and put this in your hand. So that's pretty interesting. There's a few implications here, a few combinations, which is why I'm giving Nebula 3 stars. I think she's actually a pretty decent card, and because she can only cost 1 and maybe you can get repeated value out of her, that's pretty nice, right? It's kind of like Kitty Pryde. You can at will bring her back to the hand every turn, right? That's been confirmed. Nebula, it's only if you hit it. That's going to kind of suck when you whiff. But if you hit this once or twice, we're talking pretty good value for a 1-cost. Throwing that into the deck and synergies with other things. We're talking like Forge or anything that's going to buff the power of this card because you're constantly doubling, right? You're gonna it's like Human Torch. Moving Human Torch doubles it, or Black Panther on the on reveal is going to double. So like Nebula, if you hit, you snipe, you double. And that's a lot of fun. That's pretty exciting. I really like the Guardians of the Galaxy characters. They're just a bit underwhelming, especially when you miss. Same falls onto this card, but there's a few things that we can do, right? We can Daredevil, just like the other Guardians, but this one we get returned doubling value and probably a very cheap but powerful play on turn 6. But that does raise a big issue of hitting on turn 6. See, it'd be great to double this a whole bunch of times, but then if I play it on turn 6 and my opponent plays a card there, and then bam, it's going back to my hand. Sure, maybe I doubled to like 14 power or something crazy like that, but at that point, who cares because it went back to my hand on the final turn. Now, I was thinking of like a sneaky thing and probably a pretty viable line is you set up a Cosmo play. So you set up a Cosmo lane and you just plan on playing Nebula there on the last turn. Your opponent can't play like Shang-Chi or anything like that for your giant Nebula, and she only costs 1, and then you play other things. I think there's a realm of possibility where that works really nicely, as well as Beast. You play Beast to bring back Nebula if you missed, right? And then you can play her for free. And then it's just like, why not? I might as well shoot my shot, see what happens, right? So I think that's pretty sick. I'm really excited about this card. It's one of the more interesting ones for the Guardians of the Galaxy characters. I'm only giving it 3 though because of that whiff potential, the weakness to Killmonger, the turn 6 dilemma. There's a few things that can go wrong with this card that I feel like it keeps it at a pretty decent middling power level. Pretty exciting card though. I want the Guardians of the Galaxy to see some love. I imagine prediction that we're going to see this card. It's going to join Marvel Snap in May when Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is released. So that's pretty exciting. Look at all the variants. This one has the most of all the ones I'm showing you guys today. 6 variants. We're talking Pixel, Dan Hip, Baby variant, like all the typical themes, even a Winter Vacation one. Like there's all the like typical variants that you see on a card are already data mined. This one's ready to go. I'm excited. All right, and then we have Blob. So Blob, I'm giving a 1 star. I know it sucks. So I feel like he's going to change by the time he gets released. That's just my feeling, but he has a lot of variants as well, so he might be coming soon as well. But I'm giving him 1 star because he's a 3/4 ongoing. Nothing can move this to another location. I don't know if there's like some text I'm missing here that's really important. Maybe there is, but to me, that's just Colossus without, the perks of Colossus. like not being able to be destroyed or have its power reduced. Like this guy just can't move, and that's cool. I can appreciate that. Like against an Arrow, a Magneto, even like that's sweet little tech option maybe. But for the most part, I don't know why you're running this in your deck. I'm trying to think of combos throughout the game, and I just can't think of too many. But there is Spectrum, you know, it has an ongoing tag. You buff it with the 2 power. Maybe that's okay. Maybe that's a little something, something. I don't know. Like, it kind of works with Colossus in that type of deck when you go for the Spectrum ongoing deck and you do the buffs. But are you really going to pay 3 for your 4 and then you hope to buff it later? Like, I don't know. I don't love it. There's a few locations, you know, where things move, like the Bifrost, and maybe it's like, oh, look, I have a guy that's not going to move, and then your stuff's going to move, and it's going to be great for me. Maybe that's great. I don't know. Heimdall sometimes. Heimdall's an interesting one. Sometimes you want to buff the Heimdall location. You play Heimdall on the far right, and then everything moves to the left, and then you don't have enough power on the right with Heimdall himself. But you got those crazy buffs over there, but maybe you need it a little bit more over here, and Blob being there, not moving, might help. Geez, I don't know. I just think of like Cyclops, right? 3/4. It has no ability. That's good. It works in Patriot, Mystique decks, that kind of thing. Blob doesn't really. He works in the Spectrum stuff. And then the other thing is Silver Surfer. Maybe he gets worked in there, but like, how are you putting in Blob over things like Juggernaut, Brood, Maximus? The list goes on. There's a whole bunch of better options in my opinion. So I just don't see Blob making it. But maybe there's a combo I'm missing. You got to let me know. With all these cards, I'm probably missing combos left, right, and center. So I want to hear them in the comments below. But he has some pretty awesome variants. And thematically, it's very cool as well. I just feel like power level, rough. Series 5 card to spend 6,000 tokens, get out of town. No shot am I doing that. Unless somehow Magneto becomes super popular, but then just, I don't know, no shot. Oh, and the last thing I want to say about Blob is if I were to change him before release, because they do, we could see a change to Blob. I think his ability, while underwhelming and not very exciting, you know, there has to be those kind of abilities on some cards that enter Snap, and then there's some fun scenarios where Blob doesn't move and he wins you the game. So I think we can leave that. Honestly, I think you just give him like 1 more power, like being a 3/5. And I know that kind of is like a premium stat line. You know, you look at cards like Deathlock or Polaris, for instance, but let's face it, Deathlock and Polaris both have positive effects for the decks they're running. Blob, I still don't know if you end up running him, but at least he's 3/5. And it's like, at least there's this immovable 5 power card. Like, I'll consider putting in my deck. I feel like that would be maybe what he needs. But anyways, let's get to the next one. All right, and then we have Silver Sable, a 2/6. You could only play this at a location where you have 6+ total power. I'm giving this 4 stars. At first glance, I wasn't too excited about this card. It just kind of seemed like very blah to me. But now that I think about it, I think it's really strong. So 2/6 is a pretty mean stat line, and the condition is not that hard to hit. 6+ power does not take long at all. To hit it on curve, okay, maybe not. So you're not probably playing Silver Sable on turn 2 because there's actually no cards on turn 1 that you could play that would have that much power. The only one is Ebony Maw, and you can't even play at that location anyways after you play Ebony Maw. So that doesn't really work. Best case scenario, you're probably playing this on turn 3, and then maybe your curve is a little messed up. So that's not too great either. I actually think the best application for Silver Sable is just a lot of power on the final turns, turn 5 or 6, and maybe in combination with Sarah. So you just like this Sarah Miracle type of deck where you play Sarah on 5. Your Silver Sable is now 1, and you probably at this point in time have a location that has 6+ power. Now keep in mind, it's not like you can build towards that power on the final turn. So it's going to probably be telegraphed where you're playing Silver Sable. If it's the final turn, you plan on playing her, you only have one location that has 6+ power, that's where you got to play her. But there's another really nice thing here too, is that the 6 power is a lot for a very low cost, and it doesn't get shanked cheap. It dodges that threshold unless you're buffing it through other means, like you have like Blue Marvel on the field or anything like that. There's not a lot of combo potential. It doesn't really work in destroy decks. I mean, unless you're trying to do like some Venom shenanigans, maybe that's a thing. It doesn't work in discard decks. It doesn't really work at move. I feel like it's more in this tempo deck where you're just kind of constantly putting out a decent amount of power. Maybe you're playing that Sunspot and just letting it burn up so that you can play Silver Sable there. I don't know. It doesn't work in those slow decks. Maybe in a lockjaw cycle because it's cheap and you can easily probably get to that power threshold and then throw it out there. And then if it pops up, you're fine. But overall, I feel like this is just a pretty decent tempo card. That's why I gave it 4 stars. I think it's pretty good. Titania, Lizard, those are the other cards that make it so that that power total is high for cheap cost, and then you can play those cards there. The only thing that holds me back about this card is I think about it costing 6k tokens, and that's where I always go, dang, man, because these cards need to come out. Like, you can't always have these crazy exciting cards because then they're always behind the paywall, and maybe you gotta like release the disappointing ones. But then it's kind of a bummer because they cost 6k. I just really hope they ease the token acquisition, or they change the token system overall, or just making new cards more accessible. Because in my opinion, this card, I look at it, this should be Series 3 when it gets released, right? But that's just not how it works right now. But anyways, I like it. I think it's actually a pretty strong option, would find itself in a fair amount of decks and be a solid card. So pretty excited about this one. Let's get to the next one. All right, and then we have Stryfe. So Stryfe actually only has one variant, so maybe not coming anytime soon, but it's a max Greg, and I thought it was really cool. And I wanted to talk about this card. So Stryfe is a 3/7. If your opponent has 12 plus power here at the end of the turn, any turn rather, they destroy this. So it's kind of like a Tuma. If there's more than one card at this location, at your side of the location, then Atuma gets destroyed. But Atuma costs 4 and you get 10 power. Stryfe is 3, you get 7, which I would argue is more valuable. The cheaper it is, kind of the better. And the sooner maybe I can play my armor or hold off until a later turn, play something else. The problem being your opponent has control of when they get that power total. Now I can flick that with Green Goblin, Hazmat, those kind of things, negative power, and kind of drop that down to make sure they don't get it past that 12. But chances are if they want to get there, they'll get there. So I feel like in most scenarios, you gotta protect Stryfe with armor, or maybe even Goose, because Stryfe can be played at the Goose location, and like Goose, they're not playing that crazy high power total stuff. But if they play 4 cards there, they're probably getting to 12 power, and then he's dead anyways. So that's why I had to give him 2 stars. I just don't see this being viable enough or consistent enough, because you're just, unless you draw armor and you play armor, then it's a great turn. Then you're looking at spending 5 and you got 10 power. Like, that's pretty decent, so we're happy there. But if you don't get armor, you don't get Professor X, that sort of thing to protect Stryfe, I feel like he's going to get destroyed real quick. But there's also a lot of decks that could just never get to that power total. Or maybe you play Stryfe as an intimidation tactic. You got to get to 12 power over at this location to destroy this card, or else I'm going to win it. And then you focus your efforts elsewhere. You hope that your opponent just starts stacking power out there, and it's kind of like just a mind games. I like that aspect of that card, of this card. I think this is where he could thrive. Just solo lane. Hey, you got to deal with this 7 power. You got to get to 12 plus power, even though they wouldn't have to at that point. I wouldn't commit power there. I'd just be like, hey, like that 7 power card, you feel like you need to get to 12, but really you only have to get to 8. Because I'm not playing there anymore. You just have to deal with that. And I'm going to do my own thing elsewhere. So I feel like that could be a really cool application of this card. But again, the consistency is just not quite there, right? There's just kind of better plays. I would rather play Maximus and give my opponent 2 cards rather than risk playing a card that just destroyed later, and then it's sad. So do I think this is a pretty cool card? Yeah, I think this is a very cool card. Do I think it's going to be very good? No, not really, but maybe I'm missing something. So let me know in the comments below. Okay, let's get to the last one, which I'm most excited to talk about. Bullseye with the 5-star snipe. That's right. I'm giving Bullseye 5 stars. I think this card is insane. Okay, so he's a 1/2. Good stat line for a 1 cost. Okay, good start. On reveal, the next card you draw will be a 2 cost card if any are left. That is what we call in the card game industry tutoring out a card. It's fantastic. It always tends to work out in card games, and it is such a strong effect. The idea being, you don't stuff your deck with a bunch of 2-drops because then you're just excited and you draw one. No, that's not what you do. It's the opposite, in fact. You probably only play 1, 2, maybe 3 2-drops that you really want to draw. Okay, so I'm going to provide you with some examples. Let's say we're doing that Luke Cage Hazmat deck. What are the 2 cards I just mentioned? 2 costs. Are they important to the deck? Yes, we name the deck after them. And what does Bullseye let us do? Draw one of them. Huzzah! It's beautiful. You get your combo on demand. It's perfect. Yeah, it's not drawing an extra card. It's just guaranteeing the consistency of what your deck wants to do into your hand for that big turn 6 swing with the Hazmat and the Luke Cage. Beautiful. Love it. Let's talk about discard. You could go with the Morbius and the Swarm. Morbius, Swarm, those are 2 cards you want to have in your hand when you're playing discard. Another one that pairs really well is Clean Wing. If I can get one of those 3 on demand, happy. I'm very, very happy. Or maybe you do that kind of discard where you straight up, it's like a hella discard, right? Hella discard, you're not doing a whole lot until those later turns. Maybe you really want that Morbius or that Invisible Woman. Because how many times have you played hella discard and you draw hella, you draw MODOK, but you don't have Invisible Woman, so you can't really do it. It's just over. You're like, sweet, I drew the nuts, but I didn't get that one really weak card that wraps it all together. Or that Morbius, I just really wanted to get out there so that, he doesn't get discarded. I don't want to discard him or something like that, right? So like, bam, dude, so good. Or Zabu, right? Zabu, whatever you want to call him. The January season pass card is so good with those 4 costs. So let's say it's the only 2 cost card I'm running. I really want to draw that card. It is vital to my deck. Well, at least if I draw Bullseye in the opening hand, I know I'll get Zabu on turn 2 and play him. But what if I draw it in the opening hand? Then I'm happy. I don't need Bullseye. It was just there as insurance to draw that card, that combo piece that I needed to get the rest of the deck going. So, oh my gosh, dude, this is an instant buy for me. This one I would get for 6K tokens. It's so good. The variants are unreal. Have you been noticing them cycle through? So good. Oh my goodness. I think this one is my favorite right here. My gosh, amazing. The red beating eye. The pixel variant is actually kind of fire. My gosh, the spades, the 3 spades. It's so good. But yeah, oh my God, I'm really excited about this card. I hope it does not change. I really hope it does not change. I could see it lowering in power though. The ability, I imagine they're going to keep it the same, which is really exciting, but I could see them going to like 1-1 just because I feel like that effect is so strong. And I am probably missing a dozen combos. There are so many. You could think about like getting Mojo on command, that Goose that you really wanted, maybe even Lizard just for that curve. Like there are so many. Angela's another one. Oh my gosh, I don't even know. Look at all the 2 costs and just imagine being able to draw them on 2 consistently. It's beautiful. Now, I will say, while I'm talking this card up quite a bit, the worst case scenario is you draw this card late, right? I draw it on turn, I don't know, 4, 5, or 6. It does nothing. Turn 6, it's the worst top deck ever because I'm not going to draw another card anytime soon. So it doesn't matter. It's a dead card. Or you draw it on 5 and maybe you don't want that 2 cost that you know is in your deck. You don't want to draw it anymore. Then you don't do it. If you don't have another 2 cost in your deck, then it's fine. It's just a 1-2 and you play it. But that is definitely where this card is a bit weak. But I think for the consistency of like having it in the opening hand or in the first couple of draws, with Snap only being 12 card decks, you draw most of your deck, over 50% by like turn 4 or 5, right? So you're a good chance you're going to get this, and then you can get that key combo piece that you really wanted. So I just think it's super strong and really fun and looks great. So just like 5 stars. Easy 5 stars for me. So that's going to do it for me, guys. Those are some of the datamines. I might continue to do this. Of course, I'm always covering the new datamines. There are some that are released right now. They have abilities, but they don't have cost or power levels. And I like to only talk about them when they have more of a complete package to give it a little bit more realism of what it might actually be when it gets released. So stay tuned. I think the next patch that's coming on Tuesday, we're going to have some new datamine information, and I will keep you guys updated. So snap, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time.